Welcome back to Retro Rewire. My name is JJ. We're at the Osu shopping district in Nagoya at Meikoya. We're going to start at the soundtracks. Subscribe and support the channel. I would really appreciate it. Here we have Polestar for 6,490 yen. Beautiful game. And I also have an Instagram, which I post exclusive content there. So follow me there if you haven't already. We have Darius Gaiden for 2,490 yen. That's a beautiful soundtrack, by the way. And then we have Gradius 5 for 2,890. And before I forget, Retro Rewire Game Tours. I'll leave a link in the description. We got Vampire Darkstalker's Revenge here for 1,990 yen. Same price for the Night Warriors. And I got lucky as I found that one for 500 yen at a hard off in where was it? Gyoda. But here we have Sonic the Hedgehog remix with 8 tracks. Haven't seen this one before, so that one is definitely more on the obscure side. Could be a valuable title. It was coming in at about 5,000 and some change there. But we're gonna make our way here through their showcase and kind of see some of the stuff that they have behind the glass. Here we have a Zelda Switch controller. And then we have a variety of strategy guides with Symphony of the Night in the back there. More controllers here. And then we have, look at all this Wonder Swan and Neo Geo Pocket action going on here. Definitely nice to see that, as it's not your standard Nintendo and Sega variety of stuff. And then speaking of Sega, we got a few mini consoles here with the Mega Drive 2 coming in at 24,900 yen. But that's nothing compared to this Game Boy Advance at 79,900 yen. And it gets better. 100,000 yen for the 10th anniversary Game Boy, which is actually pretty mean looking. And then we have a variety of Game Boy Advance SP systems, with the Naruto edition being like the more standout one. And then we have what do we have here? DS Lites, 2DSs, all sorts of 3DSs, and as you will see here, we got the new 3DS there for 22,900 yen. And again, I'm going to leave pricing up to you guys, as you know, pricing is definitely a subjective thing, as I hear messages that, you know, stuff is overpriced, and some of you are more than willing to pay the price. So here we go. And the prices of the PlayStation Vita, both the 1000 and the 2000 models, are definitely going to be competitive. Now, if you want it in the box, you know, that's going to be closer to like the 20,000 range. But, you know, for a 1000 model, 9,900 yen. Can't speak today, but that's reasonable. And then we have 22,900 yen for the Super Famicom Junior. And we're just going to be kind of jumping around. You know, we have some the Super Famicom stacks here, which, you know, kind of like, I wouldn't really recommend this place if you're looking to get a lot of like the first party stuff like this Super Mario Kart 64, this F-Zero X, as some of this stuff is definitely going to be cheaper at a book off, at a hard off, perhaps at a Surugaya. But the concentration is what is going to be, I guess, the little key metric that they have going on here. The selection and just the concentration of stuff. Here we have a big shooting action, Silent Hill HD collection, which is definitely a pricey game no matter where you look for some odd reason. And then we have God of War. This is going to be the PS4 Pro Edition for 23,900 yen. That's not actually a bad price, especially when you compare to what it's going for in the States. So definitely reasonable. And here we have our Game Boy Advance titles, 5,000 and some change for this F-Zero. I believe F-Zero had like 3 installments on the GBA, which that one kind of being like the middle tier in regard to like value. Then we have Sonic Advance here, part 2, part 1, part 2, and part 3, as well as Sonic Adventure 2 on the Cube, and I believe DX all have English language support. So those are definitely those are worthy titles. You know, just switch it to English and you'll be able to enjoy it. But what do we have here? The Super Mario Bros. Advance games, Super Street Fighter 2X. Look at that. It looks like Jamie Foxx is on that billboard there. I definitely would like to pick this game up, as I'm crazy about all things Street Fighter. And I just want to build up that collection. Y'all know how it goes. What do we have here? We have a Flappy Special. Haven't heard of this one before, but it looks like it's some kind of puzzle game. And then we have the Famicom box, which houses like 15 carts or maybe a few disk system games. But this TV, this Sharp, this is a 480p television 4x3 screen. And sometimes if you're lucky, you can find these at a hard off for about 800 yen. In fact, that's what I did. I found one at the Akihabara hard off of all places. I took that bad boy home, and they're actually pretty thin. The profile's pretty thin, so you could probably pack that up in a bag. But definitely a beautiful display. It does have a little bit of ghosting because, you know, it's one of those early LCD screens. But anyhow, let's make our way into the Famicom goodness here. And the selection in the stacks, at least for the loose carts, is pretty solid. The price is pretty solid. And I guess what I said earlier with like the first party stuff, it's going to pertain more to the stuff that's complete in the box. I should have been more, I should have specified that. But a lot of the loose card stuff here is reasonably priced. Rockman there for the original title for 6,490 yen. That one, I picked it up for about 3,000 at a hard off, but there was another hard off down the street that had it for 15,000. So the pricing on the first one especially is just kind of all over the map. And then what do we have here? Our Dragon Quest games, Final Fantasy, what we saw there earlier. And then we have some more Famicom stuff. In fact, we have our Adventure Island games. We have part 2 there with the pink cart for 1,190, 990 for the first game, and then 1,390 for the first Bomberman game, which I believe, what is the vintage on this bad boy, like 85? But definitely cool to see that. Pretty solid selection there. And then we have the Twin Fami for 16,900 yen. That's definitely, I want to say that's competitive, but 8,490 for the disc system, that's not really, it's a little bit on the higher side, I feel. And then here we have our loose cards. These are going to be like more of the uncommon titles, just kind of sealed behind the cases. And the hardware, look at this Wonder Mega. This is the Mark 1. Now there's 2 variants of the Mark 1 with the motorized door. 79,990, about just shy of 5,000 for the 32X, 39,900 yen for the PC Engine Duo. Now that GameCube was 99,000, and this one here is 39,900 yen, which we have seen cheaper at a book off up in Maebashi. In fact, it was like 50% off of that price. But look here, we have our Neo Geo titles. Not a bad selection, not the best, but definitely not bad. The pricing, again, I'll leave up to you. Here we have the joypad, and then we have the arcade stick that has the built-in games. We got the mini. And then we got the newer joypad for 2,000 and some change, 49,000 for the AES, and this one is coming in at 54,900 yen. So it was less expensive at the Super Potato, but the Super Potato had all sorts of notes on it. And then here we have the Cave Shooting Collection for 79,900 yen, which is about more or less in line with what I see nowadays. And then the Capcom Classics Collection Volume 2, that was just shy of 20,000 yen. We got an assortment of PSP titles. Definitely feel free to pause as we're just kind of cruising along. Here we have a variety of Pokemon games, and then all Mortal Kombat for the Game Gear. 12,900 yen. And I haven't played that iteration. I wonder how it holds up. In fact, they had a few Mortal Kombat games. They had Part 3, Part 2. These are the North American versions for 7,490 yen. And unfortunately, the Japanese releases on the Super Famicom Part 1 and Part 2 are censored. I believe they go black and white when you perform a fatality, which is a bit of a shame. But they also had North American N64 games. They had Mortal Kombat 4, they had Armageddon, Killer Instinct Gold. So definitely a solid lineup of fighting games. Here we are behind the glass, and we're seeing more GameCube games, more Sega Saturn games. What do we have here? Dracula X, the Hot-Blooded Family at 17,900 yen. Batsugan, some Dracula X next to Astra Superstars, and Shinryu. Pretty cool shooter. Not the best shooter, but definitely not the worst. And then we have some more hardware up top. 39,900 yen, the standard price that they had for the PC engines. And then they had some Palladias, with one coming in at 31,900 yen. And then some old school Sega hardware. So now let's go ahead and take a look at their Dreamcast offerings. And remember, subscribe, Super Famicom, Frank Thomas's Big Hurt Baseball, 239,000 yen. And that's most likely just because limited number of copies. 21,900 for Rockman and Bass. Definitely hit up a book off, definitely cheaper. And the Rockman X games, those are definitely rising in value, part 1 and part 2. And usually nowadays, it's more common to see them behind the glass. So I definitely need to get on that and pick up my copies before it gets too crazy. And what else do we have here? We have a Chomakai Advance, 19,900 yen. That one is definitely one that has skyrocketed in value since the pandemic. And then what do we have here? We have Castlevania Circle of the Moon, I believe. Not really sure what's next to it at 24,900 yen. And then we have some Gradius action, Gradius for 12,900. 18,900 for Gunstar Heroes, which I got lucky with that one, as I found that one in the junk bin for 200 yen, and it was cart only. It's been a few years now, like maybe 2 or 3, but that was definitely a good day. Still remember that one. And then we have some more games here. What do we have? Famicom. We got Metal Gear, Kid Dracula, Bucky O'Hare for 99,000 yen. What else do we have? Scrambled Valkyrie, 10,900 yen. And then the beautiful Swordmaster, look at that, 14,900 yen. I definitely would love a copy of that game. 34,900 yen for Punch Out in the gold cart, and then the Golden Axe for the Wonder Swan, and then the old beautiful Mega Drive titles. Let's see here. We got X Ronza for 23,900 yen, otherwise known as Ranger X in the West. Definitely a cool cover there. Sonic and Knuckles at its standard 35,900 yen price. 47,900 yen there for Contra Hardcore. Definitely a pricey title no matter where you go. And then here we have Gaiaris, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 in Sector X, and then Vampire Killer Castlevania for 67,900 yen. And I believe that's the most expensive Mega Drive game that they had there in that particular section. Now let's go ahead and look at the stacks here. We have Thunder Force 4 for 9,900 yen. Now this one unfortunately has a little bit of warping there on the slip cover, which is a shame. But these Mega Drive games are prone to that. And then 3,390 yen, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Again, if you look elsewhere, you could probably find that for about 1,900 yen. Virtua Racing, 2,290 yen. I wonder how much this game was when it launched. I'm pretty sure it was well over 10,000 yen just because of that special chip. Then we have Pat Labor for 4,990 yen. Now, usually Hard Off is a great place to look for laser discs, and they usually have the Pat Labor laser discs at 100 yen. And then we got an FZ10, 17,900 yen, just kind of chilling there amongst the Sega stuff. And then the Namco offerings on the Genesis is actually pretty good. It's a shame that they kind of skipped out on the Sega Saturn. They decided to pair up with Sony, but a lot of great Namco's library is just amazing. And we got some Wonder Boy action here. Monster Lair, I believe here. Haven't played this one, but looks like a pretty colorful game coming in at 4,390 yen. And then we have a PAL game. Look at this, RoboCop versus Terminator. 8,900 yen. I believe the North American title was a little bit, or at least the cover art, I think, if I remember correctly, it was a little bit more comic book style, which I definitely prefer. But I haven't played, well, I have played that game, but it's been a number of years. 37,900 yen for the 32X, 12,900 for the Mega Drive 2. And now let's go ahead and enjoy some of their stock of the earlier Sega stuff, like Sega Master System stuff. Let's go ahead and check it out. And don't forget to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. PC Engine, they had quite a bit of hardware here, and 16,900 yen for a Core Graphics 2, and then about 14,000 for the original Core Graphics. And I was actually I went to another Super Book Off in another area of downtown Nagoya, and I actually picked up a Core Graphics, just the actual console itself, with the little door in the back for the multi-port connection, which is kind of cool. And it included a Dungeon Master, and I picked it up for 5,000 yen. And that's going to be our next video, so definitely stay tuned for that. A little bit of a spoiler, but if you hunt around, you can get some good deals on PC Engine hardware. And I want to say, like, about 3 months ago, I found a Core Graphics complete in the box at a Furuichi for about 7,000 yen, and that was definitely a score. Now, the box was a little bit messed up, which is why it was heavily discounted, but that still was an amazing find, at least for me, and I was super happy to find that. And then here we have a few of the arcade CD-ROM games for the old PC Engine. Here we have World Heroes 2, which looks like a pretty cool port. I do have the arcade card, but unfortunately I don't have any games to test it out with. Here we have Art of Fighting, which I believe has some funky like scaling effects. And there's the actual card. And then we have the Duo version for 7,990. And then we'll just look, what is this? Toy Shop Boys, Dungeon Master, and a few other games. Here we have Image Fight, but definitely the selection for the PC Engine games was definitely pretty good. Mr. Heli. And then here we have the original PC Engine. It's just missing the actual ROM unit, but it's coming in at 19,990. And then the Avenue Pad 3 controller. This is definitely my favorite one just because of its size. And the one that I would really like to pick up is going to be the PC Engine Shuttle controller, which is here for 4,990 yen. And look at this thing. Now, I do have a PC Engine Shuttle. I picked it up console only for about 8,000 yen. And I definitely want to pair it with one of these controllers. But I love collecting hardware and especially controllers. I got a nice little collection. Now let's make our way into the Sega Saturn titles and more controllers. Look at this. And the controller selection is going to be very similar to what they had at Super Potato, maybe slightly less in price. Here we have the Bomberman version, which is pretty cool. We got the Saturn 3D pad for 3,990, 10,000 or 1,000 yen more if you get it in the box. And they also had the Knights bundle, which we'll have a look here on the bottom shelf, coming in at 9,990. And then the wireless pad, 6,990. Highly recommend that one as it's super, super comfortable. You know, you do have to keep line of sight, but that thing is a thing of beauty and probably the most comfortable Sega Saturn that I've held thus far. But here we have the Vampire Savior game coming in at 3,990. Children of the Atom, which slowly is rising. I believe I saw it at Trader for about 5,000 yen, whereas before it was like around 2,000, 3,000 yen. And we have Magic Carpet for 4,790 yen. I recently saw that one at a hard off for about 1,000 yen. So there's definitely a big difference in price there. And then we have All in the Hunt for 7,290, the namesake. Beautiful game. And I still don't own it on the Sega Saturn, but I do have it on Switch and the PS1. Then we have the Victor Model 2 Sega Saturn for 24,000. And then the Sun Station Saturn pad, which I recently picked up for 300 yen at a Furuichi. So definitely hunt around. There are still deals to be had. And what do we have here? But the thing about these other stores, you're not going to see like a North American Saturn just chilling up top for 24,900 yen. That's not actually too bad when you convert it into dollars or into euro. Here we have our PS1 titles, and we're not going to really take a look at too much. And this Makaimura game has awesome music. Definitely look that up. But let's make our way into the guides. We have Romancing Saga 2 coming in at 890 yen. And then not too far from that, we have the Super Mario All-Stars guide coming in at 1,290 yen. And this bad boy is thick. And then look at old Bowser there on the cover. He's kind of emitting that Sonic the Hedgehog attitude there with his arms crossed. And then we have Megami Tensei. And then we have Theme Park for the old Super Famicom there. And then a Neo Geo guide that has a variety of fighting games there. That one could be a collectible for all you Neo Geo maniacs. And then we have the Sega Consumer History book. And then we have old Princess Crown for 2,790 yen. And we'll finish off with Panzer Dragoon Zwei. And definitely more to come, so stay tuned. Ciao.